Hi, I'm Aaron Marcus, and I'm really excited about today's webinar. We're going to be talking to Aaron Latta, and it's going to be a really interesting one because Aaron is actually a full-time actor and a full-time student, trying to juggle both, and he's going to be talking about just the realities of making that transition. So let me just tell you a little bit about Aaron, and certainly you'll learn more as we go on. But even as a student, Aaron has already done almost 20 projects. He's been involved in lots of films, TV shows, theater, and it's pretty amazing. If you want to learn more about Aaron, you can visit his website. It's Aaron, just like my spelling, AARON LM, like Latta Morissette.com. So it's AaronLM.com, and check out his website and you can see some of his work. So let's get going here. Aaron, are you there?
I am. Hi, Aaron. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know you are incredibly busy. So
No, seriously, I was so excited about this.
good, good. Hey, so let me just get things started at the very, very beginning. Why don't you just briefly just tell us where you grew up and what kind of things you were doing in your area?
Oh, cool. Okay, so when I first started acting and when I first was growing up, I lived in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. And down there, they have a big community theater scene, but I wasn't a part of it. I was a part of my high school theater. So for my 4 years of high school, I would do every single production that ever happened on our stage. And then through getting a lot of experience doing that and having an itching to go out and try to do more, I went out my sophomore year of high school and got a manager and started working with her through like getting classes and going to auditions and trying to put myself out there as much as I could, while I had the safety net of still being in high school and doing the plays. And then I would just mostly just audition on the side for mostly with just stuff that would fit my school schedule.
Sure. And for the things that you were auditioning with through your manager when you were still in high school, was that mostly in the Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, DC area?
Yes, it was exactly.
Okay, great. So then at some point in high school, you decided wanted to go to New York. Any
Yes.
specific reason why New York, or why not LA or Chicago or
hmm
Atlanta?
I mean, the most honest reason of all would just be a matter of my like my family, and I didn't really want to necessarily make my first year out of high school across the country. I really liked the idea of being in a market that was really so full of like passion, and I would go there on trips every year, like 2 to 3 times, and just fall in love with the city. So I was like, this makes complete sense. I'm also only 4 hours from home, and I can still pursue theater and do all these little projects that are being done. And I knew that colleges were all over the city making films and stuff. So I wanted to be a part of like that community. So it was almost like a no-brainer because Los Angeles seemed like something that was more down the line.
Sure. And so were your interests mostly theater, or were you really up for pretty much anything that dealt with acting, whether it was theater, TV, film?
hmm Um, Honestly, I was really open to just doing anything that involved acting because I wanted to just dip my feet into the professional water as like much as possible. But I actually leaned more towards film. I was really into the art of film craft, and I really wanted to be a part of making videos and movies and stuff like that. So that really influenced my decision to go to the New York Film Academy my first year out of high school.
Got it. Okay. So you auditioned, you got into the New York Film Academy, um, and you felt like that would be a great place to, number one, get you into New York, but also learn what you want to be doing. And did you decide to stay at that place, or have you
Oh
taken
no, it's
classes elsewhere?
so about halfway into the program, I was in love with it. It was a really rigorous course. So we had like 12 to 10 every day, 5 days a week. We were like doing classes and really just getting so much out of it, especially because it was my first year out of Delaware in high school. So everything was so amazing to me. But then halfway through the program, I realized that I felt like the program was doing really well, but I knew I wasn't going to pursue a second year in it. So I went out and started pursuing as many opportunities as I could outside of school, trying to do projects and little films and just getting my face out in the city that I was now living in, while I also had the luxury of being in a full-time program that would keep me busy and keep me training. So by the end of the year, I was able to find my way to the William Esper studio where I practice my training now.
I see. And so, how did you even find out what other places were available to you?
A lot of research. It took like months for me to like narrow down exactly what I wanted to get from that place in my life, and then looking up all the schools that would offer that, and then like again, like in between classes I would go out into the city and like do tours of these other schools, and then I would like narrow down my decision of what was working best for me, which place I liked the most, and then from several like tours and meetings and auditions, I finally narrowed it down to the William Esper studio, and it was just a no-brainer for me.
And so, for for other people who might be coming to the city and they're not sure what place might be best for them, how do
Uh-huh.
you even go about finding out the names of different programs?
Oh, cool. So I asked. It was just all a matter of asking. My teachers are all really open and helpful. And I mean, just like how we met each other through trying to offer me some guidance when I was first starting my career back when I was
Yeah,
like 14,
yeah.
the same goes for this. Like the only difference was they were now readily available to me, if that makes sense. So while I was in this school getting 10 different teachers um, a week, I would go to each and every one and be like, hey, what do you think would be a good step for me based on how you know me and my work? Okay, cool. Thank you for these examples. Let me go look up these schools. I'd look up the schools. And then once like a lot of the teachers would say the same thing, like, oh, you should look at this place or this type of program. It was really, okay, I'm getting more and more specific. And also, I mean, had I not, I would have just used the internet. Honestly, I would have Googled like best acting programs in New York. And it might sound generic, but it'll honestly set you in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, and there are also places like Backstage.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
have a listing of, tons of different acting schools. And so once again, just and I don't want to, spend so much time just talking about how to find a school. That's a whole other kind of video. But I think
Right.
it would be helpful though when you would hear about a some kind of institution, and you would go there. Do you even remember what kind of questions that you would ask so that you would have a better sense of whether this is the right place for you?
Right. Oh, that's a really good question. For the most part, I really asked them what they thought they could give to me that other schools wouldn't. Because at that
Wow.
point, I had gone on so many different like auditions and tours and meetings, and it was all kind of like the same. Okay, we're gonna give you this, this, and this, or you're gonna gain this. And I was always really focused on what is gonna make your program different than anyone else's so that I'm going to get the most out of it. Because it really is a decision that's going to be all for you. So you can kind of be selfish in that sense for a second and be like, wait, am I going to get out of
Yeah, no, and I think that's a great question to ask. But kind of going back to something else that you mentioned that I think was really, really important and helpful to people is you were talking about, even looking for projects and, networking and making connections with other people. How did you go about doing that? Or were these like students that that you were studying with, or did you find people
this?
outside of the school also?
Oh, it was 100% outside of the school.
So
I
how did
was
you do that?
lucky because when I was doing the program, I was getting so much out of it. And I was itching to try and go apply what I had been learning in classes to real life projects. So I would go on Backstage, really easy access, and Actors Access too. Those are my two go tos. And luckily for me, I had been using Actors Access throughout high school. So I'd already known like the format. I'd already been doing auditions through it. I was very comfortable in Actors Access. But Backstage was a new territory because Backstage was much more quantitative rather than qualitative. Whereas Actors Access might post five listings or 5 to 10 a week that are really, really good. Backstage will produce like probably 20 a day at least that would fit just me by myself that I could apply for and therefore possibly do. So it really, I jumped into like this pool that was just full of like all these jobs. And so I wasn't picky at the time because I was just starting my like professional career and I really wanted to like make sure that I was training this muscle. So I would go out and do like almost every single project I could possibly do, whether it was necessarily the most professional or not, because I knew that no one was going to necessarily see them. And I knew that the students themselves were also just training for their filmmaking classes. So we were really helping each other. And from that, I was able to gain a lot of experience of just being on set and how to work with directors and other actors and gaining experiences like that that really helped translate me into the more professional work I ended up doing come the end of the year. So I decided that I wanted to spend every second that I wasn't in school trying to work as if I was. So starting in February, I would go on Actors Access and Backstage every day, and I would make my submission numbers. I would make like track and graphs and make sure that I was like submitting to more and more and more. And then like how many messages would I get back? How many auditions would I book? How many callbacks? And really wanted to like make a equation out of something that seems almost unstable. I really wanted to make this into like, okay, I have a surefire way for success. And I was able to luckily work every weekend consistently, be booked a month in advance from March until June, because it was like Monday through Friday, okay, I'm in class, Saturday, Sunday, what's my excuse for not trying to do work? So I would just go out and do all these little projects. And I'm not saying that necessarily everyone would have to do that in their career, but in my path, I felt that it was really helpful for me to really meet people, because all these connections I've made, they've translated into like really great like videos I got to work on, or people I've gotten to meet, producers I've become in contact with, and keeping all these contacts is going to be really helpful for when I'm making my own stuff and I'll
I
need
mean,
them.
that's really an incredible idea. Even if somebody is not a student, if you're entering into a new city and you're just trying to make contacts,
Yeah,
going to
exactly.
going
Yeah.
to colleges might be a great place if there are, well-known film schools and those students are going to be producing films for classes. That would be great. And certainly, yeah, look at some of the online websites that are out there and just start, putting yourself out there and see what happens. That's really incredible. Do you even remember any of your statistics? As far as how many
Um,
submissions you were
Well,
doing a day?
it's actually interesting you asked that, because I still track them. And something I've learned was like last year when I first started using Backstage, I started tracking because I'd already done Actors Access and never really thought to try and make a business plan out of it. But I started my first month, I set my headshot out to 128 different things, which is too much. I'm well aware that it was too much, but I was so excited to like be able to that I was just throwing it out there. After that, it went down to like roughly between 40 and 60 a month. I was able to send my headshots out to. On average, I would hear back from about 30 not book, get about 5 to 10 auditions, some callbacks, some skip that process because it's student films. And I would book roughly 5 projects a month. So I was able to every weekend of the month be working, if not book something for like a project coming up the following month. So work was always kind of ahead of me. But as I did more and more and more student films and worked with 8 different colleges in the city and finished thesis films and met a ton of kids who are probably going to be the next Spielberg when you think about it, because these kids are so talented. After meeting all these people and kind of like, I don't want to say wasting my time, but really putting a lot of energy into stuff that even I didn't want to see afterwards, I started being more picky because I started booking like really professional short films, and I got to do the lead in an independent feature that shot last summer, and like projects started becoming more and more professional. So I stopped doing the lesser stuff because it at this point wasn't as advantageous for me. So at this point now it averages out that I apply to about 25 jobs on Actors Access and Backstage, so 50 total, and then from there I'll average about 10 to 15 auditions, and then maybe 5 or so callbacks. And at this point, I only book like 1 or 2 things a month, if that. But they're always good. I'm never worried like, oh, is this going to be worth my time now? Now I know, okay, I'd rather not do a lesser quality film if it means I can go to my school and train harder. I would rather put that energy towards my training
Yeah,
now.
that's an amazing way of running your business. It just seems like a really smart way, and a way, because sometimes people come to a new city, and sometimes they've had a lot of experience in their hometown, sometimes not. And they just think that they're going to walk into a major market and start booking things like crazy. And I'm not saying that you can't, but you have a much better chance if you've had a lot of experience, and if you start building your connections as you get to
Right.
those cities. Because even for those connections, and I'm sure you'll find connections at acting classes that you're taking, um, because you need to find out who are some of the good agents, who might be right for you, who are the good headshot photographers in the area, um, just to even
Yeah,
find
and just
out
like
some
with the
other acting
teachers,
classes.
like talking about the schools, with like what you're saying, it's all just word of mouth when it comes down to it, especially when you have the contacts to talk to.
Yeah, and in some of the acting classes, you probably have teachers who are working actors,
Oh
and
yeah, for the most part they are. You're completely right.
those would be amazing contacts to find out, maybe there's a project going on that the teacher is involved with, or casting directors who they can connect you with. So
Yeah,
anyhow, it just seems like the networking part of it is such a crucial part. And it sounds like that's
right.
exactly what you were doing. So,
Because even well, something I found in the middle when I started getting frustrated at a point in my career where I was like, I know that I'm doing these films that aren't that great, but I feel like I don't really have the means to get something better. It all came down to, if I'm going to do this, I at least want to make sure that like I stay in contact with everyone involved, the lighting people, the sound people, the director, everyone, because if nothing else, those are going to be X amount of views on a video I make that's really good. Those people can watch it and share it with their friends, or my teachers can share something that I make and then show all the people they're connected with. Like if anything else, just having those people in your loop, I feel like will always be beneficial, even if it's a project that has nothing to do with them, because then it'll allow them to help share it.
yeah, and the other thing too is, and once again, I think you're just doing this in such a smart way. As
Thank
you
you so much.
You're welcome. As you're building your contact list, let's say all of a sudden, you're ready to write something, you want to produce a project, you want to direct a film. Well, now you've got a whole built-in crew, of people that you can get
Exactly, because I've
back in
met
touch with.
the sound person, the lighting person, the director, and I write down all the names of people who are good at their jobs when I meet them, and then I just keep a contact list and always constantly like every couple of months just say hi, how's it going, what are you working on? Because I want to make sure that we stay connected.
That's just such a great way to do it, because a lot of people just they don't see this as a business, and they see it as, I just want to be a star. And the fact
Right.
is, you got to know how to run your business, and really it's so impressive what you're doing here, and just the way that you are putting yourself out there. Look, it's scary, it can be scary for people to just go out and try to make connections and ask people questions and things like that, but that's just the way it's done. And I know sometimes people will say, well, it's who you know. It's who knows you. That's so important. And
Yeah.
and along with that is, being at the right place at the right time, but also having the skills so that when things can happen for you, you're ready. And after doing as many independent films as you've done, um, I mean, that's just given you such a background and such experience, so that when, something else, like you were saying, as you start building the ladder and working on bigger and bigger projects, you're ready to handle it.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. My biggest fear is that an opportunity is going to come that I'm not prepared for, and then I'll like ruin it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And look, I realize right now you're a full-time student. Do you have any idea, if you were not a full-time student, you were completely on your own, Any thoughts about how you would be able to pay bills while you're still pursuing the acting world?
Well, I'm very lucky in the sense of my parents are 100% supportive of me and what I'm doing, and they are very amazing about my dreams. So they help me out with virtually everything. But I did go to several classes throughout the year in the case that stopped happening, just in case, like how to support yourself. And there is kind of a science behind like if you're fine with just doing any work, like doing extra work can make you about $100 or so every day. So say you're able to do that twice a week, there's $200. If you're able to like find a modeling job, they pay between like 50 and 300, depending on what I've seen on backstage. And like if you can kind of make a an equation out of okay, acting might be a little bit unpredictable, but if I know that these rates stay consistent and I can try and keep myself working on these jobs, you can accumulate more money than you'd expect.
Yeah, and actually, if you are in the union, if you're in SAG-AFTRA and you're
Right.
doing
Yeah.
extra work, then you're looking at a lot more money, and the numbers will fluctuate depending on where you are, but it's somewhere in like the $165 for an 8 hour
Uh-huh.
day range, and then if you go into overtime, you get time and a half for the next 2 hours, and then double
Mm-hmm.
time for the next 2 hours, and so yeah, I mean, you in some ways, once again, if you're in the union, I mean, you could be, looking at a couple $100 a day just for extra work, and there are other kinds of jobs that are available, for
Uh-huh.
people
Yeah.
who want to continue to use their acting skills, but have something a little bit more regular or something, everything. I don't know if you've ever heard of standardized patient work, and I have a whole video just on that, where basically it's a lot of teaching hospitals and medical schools, and they hire actors to help work with docs and med students to teach them how to do exams better. So you are given a whole history. You know what the disease is you're supposed to have, what kind of answers you're going to be giving. And then essentially you rate the doctor at the end of the exam.
Oh, wow.
About,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, and I know people who do that on a regular basis. There's role playing jobs where attorneys will hire actors. They're getting ready to work on a case and they want to test things out. Law schools hire actors for mock juries so their students can get more experience in a courtroom. Plus, you've got all kinds of government agencies from the CIA to the FBI to Homeland Security. They also hire role playing actors. So there really are a bunch of jobs out there that people could look into. So you're not necessarily, driving an, an Uber or a waiting table,
Right, right.
a bartender.
And surprisingly enough, actually, I mean, it sounds like a cliche story, but even like working at a bar or restaurant in a popular area of the city or wherever you're based out of, like my roommate, for example, he works at a bar in a hotel, and you wouldn't think that that would lead to much work, but from working there and just from talking, because he's a bartender, he's been able to meet people who work on off-Broadway shows. He's been able to work on a reality TV show that was shooting in that building. It's just like if you're in the right place at the right time and you're a nice person who just talks to people, you'll never know what kind of connections you could spark out.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty amazing. And the other thing too that's nice with that kind of work, it's normally pretty flexible. And so if
Flexible.
something comes
Yeah.
up for you, hopefully you can ask somebody to switch hours and things like that. And so yeah, there are
Hmm.
ways. I mean, I do know that typically if you're trying to move to a major market, you want to try to save up enough money ahead of time so that you can easily live for at least 3 months or 4 months without even having to work. And that way you can really focus in on what you need to do, whether it's, finding the right classes, getting representation, putting together, the right headshots for that area. And that
Yeah.
way you're not immediately scampering around and just working other kinds of jobs just to pay the rent. And then you're not able to get to what you want to do. So it's always a good idea to have a pretty good amount of money saved up ahead of time just so that you can, really focus in on what you need to be doing, because it does take time to get adjusted to, to this any city that you're going to, whether it's learning about the subways and even places to live. Like, how did you find a place to live?
Well, when I first moved to the city, the New York Film Academy had housing, so that
Oh, so that
wasn't an
made it
issue.
easy. Okay.
But I did. Oddly enough, once I knew that I wasn't going to continue going there, and the year was winding down, and I knew that I wanted to stay in the city for the summer because I wanted to continue working, and I wanted to keep doing these jobs and training throughout the summer. I didn't want to take 3 months off of practice, so I spent my last month of school. Again, in between classes, you can make it work if you just make a schedule for yourself. In between classes, I would subway around the different parts of the city, meet realtors who were trying to sell like these little apartments or trying to rent out rooms. And then I was able to move in with four of my best acting friends from class. So we all live in an apartment. It's super affordable. It's probably, I think it's almost a fourth of what my dorms were. And it's a bigger place, and it's not even in like a bad area or anything. It's just a matter of how hard do you want to search.
That's incredible. I mean, can you just give us like a range for someone thinking about moving to New York? And I realize
Oh, for
every
sure.
every
Yeah.
area is going to be different, but just kind of some kind of range so that people would have some kind of ballpark idea of what it might actually
Yeah.
cost to rent an apartment.
So I know that like if you're going to a school that has dorms in like the heart of Manhattan, NYU or the Film Academy, stuff like that, dorms usually run around $2,000, somewhere around there a month.
Month.
Um, the apartment I live in now, after utilities and fees, is under 600 a month, and it's
Wow.
2 stories. We have a front and backyard, full kitchen, full living room, upstairs and downstairs. It's just a matter of the area, because if you're living in the middle of Manhattan, that makes sense. It's more. We live in Brooklyn, so it's a commute to get into the city, but that extra half hour isn't that big of a deal. But I also know that, like, for example, across the street from where I live, just 1 block over, the houses are a lot, and the apartments are a lot smaller, but they're probably 1,000 more than what, like 1,000 more than our place, just because of however the design is, or like the 1 inch difference in location. It really fluctuates like that. But also, if you're dealing with an independent seller, you can have a better shot of negotiating prices.
And how do you find independent sellers?
So I use these apps called Street Easy, Zillow, and um, apartment something, and like all these different services that I was on all of them at one time, breaking down. It's so specific how you can look at it. It's really made easy for you. It's not as hard or intimidating as one may think. You can just type in how many rooms you want, how many bathrooms, what like area are you looking to live in, like a mile radius of that, how many people do you think are going to be moving in, do you care about pets, etc. And then you just click a button, and the person in charge of selling it will meet you. Everyone we've met with had been a landlord, but I do know that like there are people who are just doing it themselves, trying to not use a business as a middleman.
Wow, that's really incredible. Hey, Aaron, I've got one other question for you, and then I'm going to wrap things up. Is
Please.
there is there anything that you wished you would have done prior to going to New York that you didn't do?
To be honest, I can't look back and regret not doing anything, but I do know that if I could have changed my path at all, I would have loved someone else informing me on the etiquette of auditions and how things work on set and the way that the industry works, and kind of a step by step way of making your way into the world, because no one ever really provides that for up and coming students of acting. It's always like, all right, go to the city you want to go to and you'll figure it out. And I get that, but it's really hard. And for people who aren't like constantly on their phones or trying to run around and learn this stuff, it can seem really daunting. So I knew that, for example, I had to reach out to you when I was a freshman just to like try and get insight on what the heck I'm supposed to be doing, because I was a student in high school that didn't know what the steps were. And I wish that there was an outlet for students who are really serious about acting to get an idea of what they need to do. Because even if it sounds simple and easy and common knowledge to people who are working, it really is. It doesn't make any sense if you're not already in the industry.
Well, and actually, it's so funny because I had a few people say the exact same thing to me, and so I will be creating a video
Oh, perfect. Your
exactly
videos are
on that.
so good.
Well, thank you. And it's going to be just walking you through the process of what to expect on a set and what's, what you should be doing, what you shouldn't be doing. And so, yeah, actually that's really interesting. And that's something I'm definitely going to be doing in the near future. And once again, I just want to thank you so much. I really appreciate you doing this. And for everybody, you can check out Aaron's website again. So it's aaronlm.com. And really, Aaron, you're doing such incredible things. And
I
I just
really
want to,
appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me. I hope we can do this again.
and hey, I hope we get a chance to work together on a set sometime soon. That would be really
Oh,
cool.
we better. You work too much. We'll definitely run into each other sometime.
That sounds great. Aaron, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
And thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks. Wow, that was really incredible. I just loved Aaron's energy, love the way he's going about doing this. Just, it really, he's just a really smart guy, and he's doing everything that he should be doing. So anyhow, I just want to tell you really quickly. Real love that webinar. In the future, if you have any questions, follow-up questions, always feel free. You can reach me through howtoactandmodel.com. You can also see all the videos that I've created on that website. And also, just so you know, I set aside 5 days every month to work with people one-on-one online. And that way I can craft a specific game plan just for you. And so if you go to howtoactandmodel.com, just click on the mentoring link and you can read all about it. This was great. I'm Aaron Marcus, and I can't wait to talk with you again soon. See ya.